Welcome to Beyond the Book. I'm your host, JoAnn Dickinson, and today I'm joined by teacher turned author Brittany Phillips, creator of The Boy in Boots and The Mouse House, the story about her son and his outdoor adventures. I have to say, your son is the cutest little guy. I can almost read his personality. Brittany, I'd love to start with your personal journey. Please share about your background and why you decided to become a self-published author.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I actually taught third grade for a number of years. And before having my son, Colton, I was in a public school. And even the last couple of years when I taught, I knew that that wasn't going to be my forever career. I knew I was going to be doing something else. I couldn't do the same thing every year. It was starting to catch up on me. And so once I had my son, it kind of gave me that safe out. So I was able to stay home with him. I've always loved writing and rhyming. I've had a bunch of books written that I didn't do anything with. But with this one, I wanted to make it a book so that my son had it. I went through the publishing company and they taught me all those first steps. I reached out to you too. There's a lot of steps and you don't know where to begin. What are you supposed to do? Who do you need help from? It's a lot to take on. So I went through the publishing company the first time and I learned all those first steps of everything I needed to do. But with my second book now, I decided I wanted a lot changed. I decided to cancel with that publishing company and go the self-publishing route. Gave me a lot more freedom to pick the illustrator that I really wanted, to pick the formatter that I really wanted, and to cut my book to a higher standard with printing and everything too. I was a teacher, stay-at-home mom. I finally pushed myself to write and publish a book, which I almost didn't publish. I was going to let it be. But I really wanted my son to have it. So I pushed through with that. And now I'm on my second book, which is just nearing the end of its illustrations. And it should be ready to go by fall. I'm glad I went through the first one because now we're rolling in a series.
I love that. That's kind of the same story I had. What publishing company did you go through with the first?
I used Halo Publishing, which I got just from a friend of mine that I went to college with. I was just reaching out to people that I knew that wrote books. Who did you use? How did you like them? And so that's who she used. And I spoke with the lady that owns it, and she was really sweet. And so I just went for it. But you learn a lot. I really wanted my book to have watercolor illustrations. It's additionally painted. And they didn't have that, and they weren't willing to do an offset printing company, which I really wanted better quality books to take to the schools that I go to. So those were my two big reasons of penciling with them.
That makes sense. You like the self-publishing process now that you have all your team members. Who do you use? Who do you use for editing? And tell us a little bit about your illustrator.
My illustrator is Sarah Brown. She's wonderful. I've spent months on Instagram is a great resource. I would go through there and type in watercolor illustrators, and I spent months looking for ones that I really liked and reaching out to them. Some of them didn't do books. Some of them had really busy schedules. Some were like nearing 10 grand, which was just a lot. But me and Sarah, we connected right away. I loved her illustrations. She was really excited to do traditional watercolor rather than doing the digital route. And she's been so flexible with me. I've had a couple of last minute changes that I've needed to do, and she's been so easy to work with and really enjoyable to work with. She does a beautiful job, and she puts her heart and soul into it. I mean, you can tell that she really cares about what they look like rather than somebody who's just drawing a quick picture to get it over to move on to their next project.
I found that when you're working with somebody so professional and easygoing, it just makes the whole process smoother. I'm sure you agree with that.
Yeah. And I know everybody's book is really close to their heart, but these are about my son. And this one has a lot of little touches with my father-in-law in there that's made it really personal. She's just been really great with working with me for those close to the heart parts of this story too.
Did you give her your manuscript and she created it, or did you have some sketches and ideas with your illustrations?
I definitely didn't have sketches.
I
would look
don't
awful.
either.
So with my first book, I had everything written out. I had the manuscript, I had all my notes, because I wanted it to look like my house. I wanted it to look like my woods, my son. So it's very specific on what it had to look like. I had a lot of pictures in there for her to follow. So honestly, this time around, I did the same thing, but I did it a lot less detailed, because there's a lot, although the setting is still my home, there's a lot more fiction within this one. So I wanted her to have the creativity that an illustrator would want to have. And so I gave her notes. She saw my first book, so she could kind of thread them in the same way, but in her own style. So I gave her notes. I showed her pictures. I showed her videos just so she saw what our property looked like and my son and our dogs. Then with the other things that are in there, I let her go for it. And I don't think I even had many like revisions for her to change. She did such a wonderful job. With my first illustrator, my first book, we changed a couple of the pages, which I'm thankful for, because when I go to assemblies at schools, it's really fun to show them this was the first one, and then this is what we changed it to. And if you were the author, why would you make that change? And we also talk about how do you politely tell somebody that you want something different, that you're not fully in love with it. And that's always a really good conversation to have with the students, because you don't want to say, I love it, because you're afraid to hurt their feelings when it's your book and it has your name on it, but you need to do it in a polite and respectful way. And so that's always I love being able to show them, like, this is what it was. And now this is what the picture is. Why do you think we changed it that way? I don't have any of those to do for my second round of assemblies, because I kept all of Sarah's sketches because they were just so great.
That's a good talking point. I talk about traditional publishing versus self-publishing. I ask that question in my school visits, and the kids don't know the difference. So that opens up the door to talk about that. And it's fine to use that first book and show them how different it is. Brittany, you shared that reading didn't come easy, and I find that interesting because reading didn't come easy to me either. Yet you still loved school. I hated school because it was so hard for me.
Yeah, normally you would. That makes sense.
What did you like about school, since maybe academically it wasn't that easy for you?
So when
Oh,
I do my assemblies at schools, I always talk to them about how I loved school so much, but I was the youngest in my grade and it didn't come quick for me. I didn't fail all my classes. I wasn't a bad student, but I had to work really hard. And nothing came easy for me. I was in Title I for my whole elementary school year. I would get pulled out of my classroom and go into that small group in another room and just get extra support with my reading. But I also had great grandparents and parents who took me to Huntington Learning Center after school. And they gave me extra help with reading comprehension, which I don't know that many kids go to those places anymore. Sylvan Learning Center. I thought they were kind of big when I was younger, but they're not used so much anymore. But I tell kids I loved school. Why do you think I loved school so much when every subject was hard? I would always say you had a lot of friends. Actually, I was really shy. I had two best friends growing up, and that's it. So I didn't have a ton of friends. I was really quiet. I was not outgoing. I didn't know how to go up to people and ask to play with them or just start playing with them. It didn't come natural to me. Um, it was my teachers. I had best teachers. I have many teachers now that I still talk to, from elementary, middle, high school, even a college
oh,
talk to. So I always tell kids that that was what made me go to school. And that's what led me to become a teacher myself. They made me feel safe. They never made me feel like I wasn't smart enough.
wow,
If
that's
I needed extra
wonderful.
help, if I needed help with my homework. And they were just always really kind. And they took the time to make a personal connection with me. And that's what got me up and going to school and excited for school every year.
You grew up quite a few years after myself, and I don't feel like I was never taught how to study. Things didn't come easy to me, although my sister, she got straight A's and she never studied. And it's like, how is that? Was socially awkward. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was shy, but there wasn't that help that you explained. Did you grow up in a small town?
I grew up in Feasterville, which is in the Chamonix school district. No, I think we did have one high school, but we were maybe three or four elementary schools, 800 kids in my graduating class, which I think is pretty big, right?
That's pretty big. I think it was a very different world back
Yeah.
then.
I, I I don't even know if I would love school today as a kid, because as a teacher, I see how many assessments I had to give my own students.
Yes.
a week, at least one a week, two
Oh,
sometimes, depending on, how the curriculum's lined up. But it and the standard is so much higher now. I wonder if I was a kid going to school right now, would the teachers love be enough to really make me want to go back? Because there's just a lot more. It's really heavy for kids these days in school.
it is. And you have to have a passion to be a teacher. My husband's family is full of teachers. His dad was a teacher for years, his brother, nieces, nephews. We have a lot of family members that are teachers. And you have to have that passion to help kids. I feel like some teachers, because they're so bogged down with so much that they have to do, it's really hard. It's a hard job. And I always say teachers don't get paid enough for what they have to do.
Certainly not. But
Yeah. Sure, you made it a mission to help every student find a book they loved. Can you share that story about your student who hated reading and how the journey changed for both of you? That was me. I hated reading. I didn't have picture books growing up. I think that's why I'm such a kid at heart and I
yeah,
love them so much that I want to pack my books with as much knowledge as I can to help kids learn. Share that a little bit about that.
there's always going to be those handful of kids that you just never forget no matter how many years go by. And so this is definitely, and for different reasons, but one boy I will never forget. He was as sweet as pie, came from the best family, but he didn't like to read. And he was very forefront with sharing that. He never gave me a problem with reading or anything academically in the classroom, but he just said, I just don't love to do it. And that was my challenge. I said, you just didn't find the right book. Trust me, you're just reading books that you don't like. So we'd have to find you the right book. So we would talk about things that he enjoys and different interests that he had and trying to find the balance between how many pictures need to be in the book to keep his interest versus how many words. And we went through book after book after book, but he gave everyone a try. I said, just start reading it. Give it a chance. If you don't like it, totally fine. We'll put it away. We'll start over. And it was, I think, took us till maybe mid or end of the year. Geronimo Stilton was the one that won him over. And I was like, thank goodness, because there's so many books in that series that he can.
I missed the name of the book. I'm sorry, Brittany.
It was the Geronimo Stilton series.
Oh,
He loved like detective types books, but like
oh,
Sherlock Holmes was a little too high for him. So he needed
yeah.
more of like a thinner book, a little bit more pictures inside. And so that was the series that hooked him. And then you have a couple students that will always write to me every year. And even being a stay at home mom, I actually had two cards sent to me, I think last year, from two different students. And they're in middle school now, and the school mailed them to me, which is always so sweet. But he wrote me a letter, and I think he was in middle school at that point. And he was just thanking me for taking the time to find a good
Wow.
book. He's like, I love to read now. And I don't care if he learned anything else in the school year. The fact that he found a book and he loves to read, that opens up the world to so much learning already just by itself.
When a kid can't read, I feel like they're missing out so much.
Oh,
My grandson doesn't like to read, and I think it's because it doesn't come easy. They're in a private school, so my daughter is very on top of making sure he has all the help he needs and anything additional that he needs. But it's all about finding what they like. And I think that's what's so special about children's books is there's so many out there, but when you've got a good story and even real life background, my John's Camping Adventures is about my grandson going camping for the first time. Kids can relate to that. And then you want to give them either a glossary if it needs it or fun facts. Do you have fun facts or any information in your first book, or if you're going to add it in your second book?
my first book was very simple. So no, it has like a search and find in it, has a coloring page in it. I have a book that I wrote but haven't published yet, and it's like his adventure of finding the box turtle in our woods, and that has different types of turtles in the back. But my second book will have more of like a writing activity in the back to gear towards
Okay.
higher students.
That's great. Any extra little pieces, whether it's a coloring page, whether it's finding something that they have to look for, I think that gets them involved, gets them intrigued. And, with you being a teacher, of course, you're in tune with all that. So all the teachers that I interviewed, I feel like they've got one leg up on us because they're in that classroom. They're connecting with those kids and they know exactly what you need to do and what you need to put in children's book. Your books grow alongside your son. How does each story evolve as Colton does? And why was it important for you to reflect his age and personality in the series? I can't say enough about you've got so much material between teaching and your son and his little adventures. I
like everything that we do could be a book in itself. So it's picking which one I want to do and finding the plot. I have ideas. We're in our garden all the time, so I would love
I
to
love that
kind of book with the garden. I haven't thought of what yet, so I try to brainstorm that as much as I can. I would love for that to be my next one. When I wrote the Mouse House book, he was only one, so he was really young, and he was obsessed with dinosaurs. And obviously, I love to read, and I know how important reading is, so I wanted him to love to read. But he was little, so like, how do I get him to stay still for a book? And that's how my parents say too. It's like they just don't stay still for a book. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hide dinosaurs in the illustration. So he's going to look for them while I'm reading the words. And even when he was young, I would let him walk around and play and I would just read aloud because he's still hearing the words. And that's a big part of it until he's able to sit. That boy will sit for 45 minutes now before nap at bedtime. We just read 6 books before his nap. He wants to go and go and go. And he sits there the whole time. Next book, next book, next book. He loves it. So it's just a matter of being flexible as a parent and letting them walk around and roam and play. If you're reading it out loud, they're hearing it. And then I wanted to put the dinosaurs in there because he was obsessed with dinosaurs at 1 year old. So he could look for the dinosaurs and have that patience because he's searching for something while I read. He still loves dinosaurs, but he's getting really into trains now. So we made sure to incorporate trains in book number 2. But I think the biggest difference between the first book and the second book, and according to how he's growing in his personality, book 1 is really simple because he was just one. We would go for walks, we would check the birdhouses. It was really simple. Now he's 2.5. His imagination is the most wonderful thing in the world. You don't just go for a walk looking for lions and monkeys swinging from the trees, and it's everything. He was really into this book, and it's how he is. I'll get 30 books a month from the library, but there's like 5 that we have to read over and over again every night. And there was this book about beasts. I forget what it's called, like King Arthur and the Beast or something like that. And he was stuck on this idea for beasts. So we would walk through the woods and he would call the dogs Grummy Beast and a Penny Beast and a Mommy Beast and a Daddy Beast. And we're this big beast family. And he would just go on and on and on with all of this stuff. So his imagination is just running wild right now. And it's the most wonderful thing to watch and experience. But that's where the idea for the second book came from. There's a lot more to the second book. It's a longer book, more depth. There's more animals because as we go for walks now in our woods, we are seeing more animals. We're hearing more animals. And so I like to incorporate all those real life experiences that he has into each book. And Pop, who was my father-in-law, had recently put up last year a hunting fort in our woods, and he was obsessed with climbing up the ladder. And he was really high up in the woods in this fort, and he could lift the windows up and he could look out and be searching for all kinds of things. And that's where the idea for the tree house came from. Okay. Sarah drew this most whimsical tree house that now I'm like, I need to have this tree house in the woods. I wish it was a real thing. But I just gain all this inspiration from him, the things that we see in the woods, the toys. You'll see the different toys that he plays with, magnet tiles, chainsaws, all different types of things that he loves now inside this book, the second one. And so I just try to go with whatever he's into. And that's what made it so easy to write these books because I stopped trying to write the most perfect fictional book with these characters that have all of these skill sets and getting all that emotional learning in there. I was trying to get everything to make the most perfect book. And after I spend all this time trying, I hated it and I would crumple it up and I would throw it away. It wasn't a good book. I was trying too hard. And so when I stopped and just thought, why don't I just write about what we're actually doing? It came so easy. And I tell that with kids when I go to assemblies. Who here has to write a book in school and just gets stuck on an idea? What do I write about? And I say, whenever you're in that moment, try and start with something that's true. And you can continue on with your true story. Or as you go, now the wheels are turning in your mind, and now you can turn it into this fun fictional story. It just gets you started. And that's all you need is a start.
I love that you shared that with the students in school. That is a great concept because it's true. I wrote a couple of books. My Amelia Ophelia was born because my granddaughter said, "You write about John, you don't write books about me." But I didn't know anything about bees, or I didn't know that much about narwhals. You have to research that information. It came pretty easy to me, but it was definitely harder than my John's camping adventures because I wrote about my grandson and all of his experience. I think that has a lot to do with books that aren't so great is somebody's trying to force, you're always trying to see what's trending. I get people at my farmer's market ask me, "Do you have a dinosaur book? Do you have a truck book? Do you have this? Do you have that?" You have to find a subject that comes easy because if you force it, I feel like it's just not as natural. I think what you're doing, Brittany, is fabulous, and everybody is going to connect with that because there's a lot of kids out there just like your son that is curious.
I can't keep up with how many books I could write about in a day with all that he plays.
Exactly. Write all your ideas down. That's what I did. I wrote all the ideas down. I didn't write all of them, of course, but you have to pick and choose. Who is your book designer? Do you have an actual book designer that designs the layout for you?
Hannah, she's my designer. She illustrates too. And she has an editor within her team whose name is also Hannah. She's been great. I don't even know how I came across her. Jen Randazzo, she was a big help to me too, just like you were. Swarmed her with all of my questions in the beginning, and she gave me a lot of knowledge. I think the first conversation that I had before I even chose her and paid her was more, she gave me more advice and more support than I had my entire
Yeah.
first book with the publishing company. And her editor versus my editor with the publishing company, worlds different. Worlds different.
Mm.
With the first book was just like grammatical stuff. My editor with my second book sent me a page of like suggestions, recommendations of how to like dive deeper in my story, not just grammatical stuff. How do I make this story fit? It's what made the second book so much different than the first. Over.
Isn't it interesting when you've got a good team behind you? Robin Katz is like that as well, my editor. I give her a very rough draft and she'll meter it perfectly. She'll make suggestions of this is going to sound better. When you have those team members, they make a shine, cultivate it and change it so much. I want to get into your second book is filled with meaningful tributes to your father-in-law you mentioned. How did you work with your illustrator to honor his memory? We never want to put something in a book that doesn't honor them. Is it real life things that you put into the book? Give us a little bit of background about what's in the book and how you honored your father-in-law.
My father-in-law passed away pretty suddenly. And so I remember I was at the funeral home when she sent her like whole rough sketch of every single page. She had her sketches finished. And it was that moment. My father-in-law was really proud of the books and he loved Colton so much. I wanted to make sure he was in the book, but I had to scramble in that moment. How can I add him in here? Because I don't want to add him too late. She's already done all of her sketches for every page. And so I added the things that had meaningful to him and my son. So my son loves trains because my father-in-law loved trains. He had an entire room in his house that was model trains. We went to train shows. So you'll see a train whistle in this book. I have it right here because I have a picture of him right next to me. This is my husband's train whistle when he was little.
Oh,
Gave it to my son. And so you'll see this on the shelf in his treehouse room in the book. That's one of the things. The second thing is because the treehouse was inspired by my father-in-law's hunting fort in there. You'll see at the bottom of the tree is like an etch with a heart and it says pop up on it, like carved into the tree. Before my father-in-law passed, when he was in the hospital still, we were talking about you need to be some sort of a spirit that comes to visit me when you pass away. And I said, don't be turning things on and don't be scaring me. Like you need to be some spirit animal that comes to visit me.
I
And so
love that.
we were trying to talk about all the different animals that kind of was him. And we landed on, I was like, a bald eagle. You are the spirit, your spirit animal is a bald eagle
Oh, that
because
gave me
he was
chills.
so patriotic. He was so proud. He was a bit stubborn. And so you'll see in my book that a bald eagle shows up twice. Once it's on top of the treehouse, sitting there at the top, and at the very last page, Sarah was able to draw for me the eagle.
I'm tearing up listening to it, Brittany. I have chills of the story behind that.
So the eagle is flying above my son and the two dogs walking out of the trail just to show him that he's always with them and he's always watching over them.
Oh, I I have a similar story about my mom. I always feel like she's here with me. I was very close to her, and it's never easy when you lose a parent, and especially when you're so close to them. But my mom's been gone for a while, but it's touching. You're a big advocate for outdoor play and imagination. Why do you believe it's so important for kids to explore freely? I feel like this is kind of a common sense, but there's a lot of kids that still sit on the couch. How do your books help inspire that curiosity? You've shared a lot about your books, Brittany. Why do you feel that's so important? What can you give us that's another bit of piece of information that maybe somebody didn't think about with that?
If you know me, you would know that like the screens with kids drives me crazy. I was a third grade teacher, and some of them would have Apple Watches, and they have cell phones in their backpacks. And I get certain reasons why people do it for emergencies and whatnot. But when you see them just like scrolling, or they have the headphones on with the iPad at the dinner, drives me crazy. So I'm a big like minimal screens. I'm no judgy with screens. I you got to put a TV on every now and then if you want to get something done, or there's educational things you can do. I'm big on timing it. So my son will not watch more than 20 minutes at a time. He will not watch more than 1 hour a day, and it's always spaced out throughout the day because you'll notice things on the TV. Everything moves so fast. Everything moves so fast. The colors are so bright, which is another reason why I wanted my illustrations to be watercolor, calm, light. Yes, I love Little Bear. I love Franklin. I go back to like Bernstein Bears, all of the slow paced and light colors. And just in life, people can be really fast paced. It's what's next, what's next, what's next, quick, quick, quick before we're late. And so even as a teacher, I was timed to the minute. Like I am a very on time person. I was like, oh, the minute's done. We're moving on to the next thing because you have a schedule you have to keep. In public school, there were 8 of us, and we had to be teaching the same lesson on the same day. So you get behind, and that's stressful. I was always to the minute, and that is a hard habit to break. Sometimes with like, right, you've got nowhere to be. Go for a walk. You've got 3 hours before nap. Bring a snack with you. Like you've got nowhere to be. So it takes time for even me to calm my mind down. But when I go for a walk in the woods with my son, I see there's such a difference between his personality when he is out in nature, observing the things around him. He is calm. He is so observant. He's looking at every little detail, hearing every little sound, touching
Love that.
all kinds of things. And I do notice when he watches TV that sometimes his personality changes and he can be a little bit snippy afterwards, or he picks up things that he hears that I don't love. And so his personality is different when he's outside versus, inside, maybe watching a TV show or whatever. But, when you stop and you slow down, kids actually have the time to see everything around them. And you asked before too of like what games can you play out in nature and stuff like that. And I stopped and thought, I'm like, what do we do? What do we play games? And I was like, we don't. We
Yeah.
just simply go for a walk. We simply take the time to look for turtles, to listen to the birds, to try and find frogs in the water when we pass by. Um, and in those moments is when his imagination comes to life.
I love that.
And I love seeing kids when they're playing with things and they're giving them voices and they're pretending they see something in the woods. Like imagination is just so important for them. And I think when you're watching TV and or you're scrolling on a phone, you kind of lose that. I mean, you do lose it because you're not practicing it. You have to practice it. And when
Yes.
they're really young too, imagination doesn't just come to kids. You have to use yours to model for them. And then they're like, oh, that's how I play that, or that's how I give that voices, or I can do that. And when they see you model it, then their imagination takes off on their own. And so I thought by writing the first book, it would help get kids outside because it shows a fun way to be outside. And I was hoping that it would encourage people to maybe build their own birdhouse, maybe buy one and paint it and hang it up. It gives you something to look at, it gives you something to look forward to. So if you're not somebody who typically loves to go outside or wants to go for a walk every day, to check a birdhouse can be really exciting because there might be a nest in it one of these times that you check it. And so that was the point of that book, not only to write about my son's experience checking the birdhouses, but to hope that it encourages kids to go out and go for a walk because you never know what you're going to see. You never know what you're going to experience. We've seen snakes, we've seen box turtles, we've seen turtles. We have not seen an owl yet, but I so hope that we do. We hear them all the time and we talk to them. But just the togetherness and the fresh air is so important for kids, but it's really important for adults too.
Absolutely. And I think just the nature and appreciating, I don't think a lot of kids in certain areas, especially in a big city, that don't get out, and there's so much to do. You can find hiking trails, but I just feel like the beauty's not appreciated, or the animals, and just appreciating what's around us and what's been created for us to look at and learn. My husband and I love to go camping and hiking, and the beauty is all around you. You just have to go find it.
But yeah, being bored is a wonderful thing for a child to be because they can just start doing whatever they want to do around them. And the amount of lessons that comes out from not stomping on an ant or killing a bug, there's a lot to that. It sounds really simple, but there really is a lot to that. I had to teach my son, like, we're not killing the spiders because those spiders eat mosquitoes and we don't like the mosquitoes. It also just teaches them empathy and how to care for something else, no matter how big or small it is.
I love that about empathy. You took something as simple as not stepping on a spider and how showing him spiders are good for us. And, they eat the bugs. And what a great teaching. Another book.
I could go on and on.
Brittany, share your book with us. Do you have a copy of the second one, or you don't want to share it yet?
I don't have a copy of the second one yet.
Okay.
She's so close to finishing the illustrations and then has to do some digital tweaks. And then they're going to edit it one more time and the formatter puts it all together. So I don't have it yet. I wish I did, but I'm excited for it. But this is the one I have now. Are you not going to be able to see it?
I think the illustrator did a beautiful job. I could just see the look on his face.
Oh, she did. It's just a different type of illustration than my book now, but she really did a good job with him and the dogs.
I love it. So fun. Brittany, it's been wonderful talking to you and getting to know you and getting to know all about your stories and going beyond the book. Share with our listeners where they can find you, your website, your social media handle.
My Instagram is where a lot of my stuff is, and my name is The Boy in Boots. My book is on Amazon.
Just do a Google search, Brittany Phillips, and it comes up with Amazon. I would love to have you back when you figure that out and get that up and running and tell us all about why you chose that website company. I was fortunate enough that I took one of my websites and I turned it into an author. I like WordPress just because you can take it and change it, change the pages, change anything you want, or you can go with something simple. Wix, is it Wix? Brittany, it was wonderful talking with you, and you have a great day. I can't wait to see your next book.
Thanks for having me, JoAnn.
You're welcome.